The only antagonist who remained the sole architect of his world's demise from onset to conclusion was Kefka. No matter how fiercely you set your sights on the final fight, there's almost always one battle beyond it against who knows what. Only one constant remains. At some point, all their health bars have to hit zero. So you have your fighters, a call to action, a catalyst for Armageddon, and several symmetrically positioned temples housing exactly what you need to restore peace. All the good guys need now is a way to get there. The first transport earned in a Final Fantasy belonged to a pirate, and a crew of scallywags would give up their air or seafaring vessel again in 2, 5, and most recently 12. Canoes were issued late in 1 and earlier in 2, but only permitted river passage and were omitted from installment 3 onward. The canoe's cousin, the raft, appeared occasionally in 6 to split the party and, ironically, bring it back together. Boats began going below ocean level in 3, and submarines surfaced a second time in 5, and a third and last time in 7. 6, 7, and 8 all barely escaped from high-speed train sequences, from derailing to deboarding to fighting the engine itself. The hovercraft was exclusive to the 4th chapter until 8, when Balam Garden went mobile. 8 also contributed numerous four-wheelers to the long list of series vehicles. All of these modes of travel, whether manually operated or not, merely acted to redirect players until they were able to take flight. Airships have been in every core Final Fantasy game, and no resistance stood a chance without at least one, since they were prone to being destroyed and rebuilt. They first housed living quarters in 3, added tools and armaments in 4, morphed into multiple forms in 5, and migrated to Mode 7 in 6. Final Fantasy VII deployed choppers, 4 launched a spaceship, 8 stepped even further out into the stars, and 9 brought some of the original sprite concepts into 3D. 11 let you enjoy the view from the top deck, but 10, 10-2, and 12 all teleported you directly via short cutscenes. With the exception of 1 and 6, the majority of the world's aeronautic endeavors were conceived by one man. Cid's appearance and allegiance is never quite the same in each game, so it's always hard to guess what he'll look like or where the engineer might pop up. His name, Shido in Japanese, is rumored to come from the tale of the immortal Spanish conqueror El Cid, or from the engine tuning term representing cubic inches displaced, or CID for short. If Cid's not around, you can always make Talon tracks. Since Final Fantasy II, chocobos have been willing to seek out the ends of the earth as long as you don't let go of the reins. They hid out in secret farms in 2, 3, and 4, started the trek from the get-go in 5, and became available for rent in 6. In 3D, they became less of a necessity and often required the dual act of taunting and taming. As extras, they hit the races in 7, a peripheral in 8, got hot and cold in 9, and finally followed you wherever you went, as long as you treated them right, in 11. Despite their mediocre significance in 10 and 12, they have yet to miss a game since their introduction, and it's impossible to imagine a Final Fantasy game without them. It's also difficult to conceive a world of crystals and chocobos without Moogles, who first appeared as Doga's security service in 3, but oddly skipped 4 entirely. They guided you to their hidden forest in 5, where you could briefly walk amongst their tribe, but they finally joined the party in 6, saving Terra from an advancing army, and introduced Mog, who could equip the invaluable Moogle charm that allowed you to journey without the worry of enemy encounters for the first time. Since then, Mog and his cuddly wanderers have appeared to facilitate anything from synthesis to saving your game to selling everyday items. Their name in Japanese is a fusion of the words for mole and bat. Despite these animal influences, their appearance has varied greatly over the years. About the only thing that remains the same is their trademark poof on a wire, or pom-pom. Moogles can preserve your progress, and chocobos can chase the horizon for days, but you'll need some trusty steel to make it through each dungeon alive. Excalibur, from the King Arthur legend, and the Masamune, named after the Japanese swordsmith, have been top-tier blades since Game 1. The Bloodsword, Ragnarok, Save the Queen, and Ultima Weapon would challenge their supremacy in later installments. No matter what the class system, characters will often only be able to wield certain weapons. Class, along with Magicite and Zodiac crystals, also determines which characters can arm themselves with the deadliest artillery of all, summons. In some cases, these otherworldly creatures were atmosphere or merely another branch of spellcasting. However, infamous summoners such as the likes of Rydia, Garnet, and Ico, or the beings themselves, such as the Espers of 6 and the Faith of 10, were focal points and drove the plot forward. Espers, Eidolons, Avatars, or Aeons, they've had many monikers, reinventions, and systems. With the exception of the beings that made up the totema of Tactics Advance and the Espers of Final Fantasy XII, which were comprised of original concepts, as well as prior Final Fantasy nemeses, most of the summoned creatures throughout the series remained part of the same circle. The pool has ranged from being as few as 8 in its debut in 3 to as many as 27 in the original release of Final Fantasy VI. Most, if not all, of these astral creatures were inspired by classic mythology from a number of cultures. The two beings that appear most throughout the series, Ifrit and Shiva, reflect two cultures from which Final Fantasy drew a great amount of inspiration. In the Arabic tradition, the Afriti, or Afriti, were a violent and cruel race of genii that were often associated with fire. Shiva, one of the primary deities of the Hindu pantheon, was aligned to a number of abstract concepts, such as creation and destruction. Arabic myth also yielded Bahamut, a gigantic aquatic creature similar to a whale, that carried the bull Kuyata, another Final Fantasy summon, upon its back. From Hinduism, there was the gigantic Garuda, one of the mounts of the god Vishnu, as well as the goddess Lakshmi, the correctly translated form of Starlet, who is the matron of beauty and fertility. Hinduism also held the gods Rama, the seventh avatar of Vishnu, and Indra, a deity of weather and war, both of which inspired Ramu, who helped guide the player down the path of summoning in a number of games. The rarely referenced Judeo-Christian mythology inspired the great serpent Leviathan, which was mentioned several times in the Old Testament of the Bible. Egyptian culture called forth the phoenix, a beautiful golden bird that would burst into flames at the end of its life, only to rise again from the ashes, as well as the ancient citadel city of Alexandria, which inspired the summon Alexander. In addition to the many monsters Greek mythology threw at the players, it also contributed the summons Titan and Siren. The Titans were children of Uranus and Gaia, and precursors to the Olympian gods. The Sirens were vicious mermaid-like creatures whose deadly song has been set upon such heroes as Jason and Odysseus.